You betrayed me in secret. Now you'll face the consequences in the open.
My daughter called me weak. That was the first thought in my head when the envelope slipped from my fingers and hit the kitchen table with a loud, flat smack. Plates rattled. A fork jumped and clanged against the tile. The sound made Emily look up from her phone like she'd been slapped. I didn't say anything at first. I just stood there, fingers still curled in the air as if the envelope was still in my hand. My heart was pounding so hard my chest hurt. "Dad," she frowned. "What's your problem?" The envelope sat between us like a grenade. White, heavy, thick paper. Her name in black letters on the front. I took a breath that tasted like metal. "Open it," I said. Emily rolled her eyes, that same impatient roll I'd seen 1,000 times on her mother's face. "Can you not be dramatic for once? If this is another guilt trip about Mom, this isn't about your mom." I cut her off. My voice came out calm, too calm. The kind of calm that makes people nervous. "It's about you. Open it." She scoffed but pulled the envelope closer. Her nails were painted black and chipped at the edges. She slid a finger under the flap, tore it open, and pulled out the folded papers. For a second, she didn't even read, just skimmed like it was some boring bill. Then her eyes landed on the header. Her face drained. "DNA test?" she read slowly. I sat down in the chair opposite her. My knees felt weak, and I didn't trust them to keep holding me up. I'd rehearsed this moment in my head for days, but reality felt different, heavier, colder. "Before you call me weak again," I said quietly, "you should know something." She swallowed and glanced at me, suspicion and fear starting to mix behind her eyes. "What is this?" "You remember what you said last night?" I asked, "when you stood in the hallway defending your mother. Remember?" Emily clenched her jaw. "Yeah, I remember. I said you were pathetic for leaving her over a small 20-year-old affair. A mistake she made before you even got married. Because that's what it was. A mistake. You're the one blowing it up." I nodded slowly. I'd repeated those words in my head all night like a curse. "She told you that's how it happened," I said. "A small affair. Just one time. A long time ago. Before the rings, so it shouldn't count. Right?" Emily shrugged, but her movements were tighter now. "That's what you said, yeah? You left Mom over ancient history. That's on you." I leaned forward and tapped the paper still in her hand. "Read it." Out loud. She hesitated, then looked down again. Her voice started steady. "Paternity analysis results. Probability of paternity, 0.0%. She stopped, blinked. "Read it again." Slower. "Alleged father, David Miller. Tested child, Emily Miller. Probability of paternity, 0.0%. The words hung in the air like smoke. She stared at the page as if the letters might rearrange themselves into something less brutal if she waited long enough. "What does that mean?" she whispered. "It means," I said, and my voice cracked for the first time, "I am not your biological father." Her head shot up. The anger came first, like it always did with her, the same reflex she inherited from Jessica. "That's not funny. If this is your way of getting back at Mom, it's sick." I didn't answer. I just reached into my pocket and put another folded paper on the table. This one was smaller. A torn corner, a printed address, a name. My daughter called me weak for leaving her mom over a small 20-year-old affair. We weren't even married then, I said slowly, the words burning in my throat. I gave her a DNA test and her real dad's address and told her, "You've got 30 minutes to pack your things." I pushed the second paper toward her. "That's his address." I added, softer now. "Your biological father. His name is Jason Turner. Lives 2 towns over. Never knew you existed until a week ago." Her mouth fell open. She looked from the DNA test to the address and back to me, like she was trying to find a seam in the scene, a glitch that would reveal this as some twisted prank. "I don't believe you," she said. "Mom would have told me." "She would never." I laughed. I didn't mean to, but it came out bitter and harsh. "Your mom would never." I repeated, "Emily, your mom lied to me for 20 years. She looked me in the eye, walked down the aisle, said vows she never respected, and built an entire life on a secret that started before you were even born and never really ended." "Stop," she snapped. "You're just hurt because she moved on. Because someone finally stood up to you." "No," I said. I'm hurt because I loved you like my own. From the second they put you in my arms. Every school play, every fever, every broken heart. And while I was doing that, your mother was laughing behind my back, letting me raise someone else's kid and calling it marriage. Her lower lip trembled. For a moment, I saw the little girl who used to run into my arms after nightmares. Then she shoved the papers away like they were contaminated. You made this up, she insisted. You forged it or something. You can't just decide one day you're not my dad. That's not how this works. I leaned back in my chair and folded my arms. The anger that had been roaring in me for days settled into something colder. Sharper. I didn't decide anything, I said. Your mother did. 20 years ago, when she climbed into another man's bed and then chose to build a life with me while hiding it. She decided this, Emily. Not me. Not you. Her. Silence stretched between us. The clock on the wall ticked too loudly. Somewhere outside, a car door slammed. I checked my watch. You've got 30 minutes, I said quietly. She blinked. 30 minutes for what? To pack your things, I answered. You told me last night I was weak for walking away. That I didn't have the right to leave after what she did. That I was overreacting. So now you get to choose whose side you're really on. Hers or the man whose DNA is on that paper. Her eyes widened. You're kicking me out. I'm letting you go, I said. To the life you keep defending. To the truth you think is no big deal. Her phone buzzed on the table. The screen lit up with a name that still made my stomach clench. Jessica. Of course. Emily stared at the screen, then at me, torn. For a second, I actually hoped, she would hit decline and listen. Instead, she snatched the phone up. Mom? Yeah. He's gone insane. I stood up. 29 minutes, I said, pushing my chair back. Use them well. I walked down the hallway toward the bedroom, her voice echoing behind me, rising and cracking, overlapping with another voice on speaker that I knew too well. Jessica was already screaming, already spinning the story, already painting me as the monster. And as I opened my closet to pull out the suitcase I'd already packed days ago, I knew one thing with absolute clarity. This story didn't start today. It started 20 years ago, the night my wife decided I was just a backup plan. And today was the day that whole crooked tower finally began to fall. If you really want to know when this all began to crack, it wasn't the DNA test. That was just the final nail. The first crack was smaller. Stupid even. It started with a phone call and a migraine. 3 months ago, I came home early from work. I wasn't supposed to. I had a late meeting scheduled, back-to-back calls, the usual grind. But around noon, my head started pounding. Lights getting too bright, sounds too loud. My boss told me to go home before I passed out in front of a client. So I drove back, crawling through traffic, one hand on the wheel, the other pressing against my temple. All I wanted was a dark room and silence. When I opened the front door, the house was quiet. Too quiet. Jessica's car was in the driveway. Emily's too. It was a weekday, but Emily had night classes, so being home didn't seem too weird. Still, the silence felt staged. Jess, I called out, dropping my keys in the bowl. Ing. No answer. I walked down the hallway, footsteps muffled by the carpet. Our bedroom door was shut. So was Emily's. The bathroom too. Every door closed, like the house was holding its breath. I heard it then. A muffled laugh. Emily's voice. I relaxed a little. Maybe they were watching something together. Maybe for once it wasn't drama. I was about to knock when I heard another voice through the thin wall. A man's voice. Low. Confident. Familiar in the worst way. He really still doesn't know? He said, amused. My hand froze on the doorknob. He never knew. Jessica replied, sharp and dismissive. He's too trusting. That's his problem. My heart skipped. I didn't open the door. I just stood there, my ear inches from the wood, afraid to breathe. Emily's voice joined in. Mom, stop. You're awful. Jessica laughed. Oh, come on. Don't look at me like that. Your father's had 20 years of playing hero. He'll survive a little truth. Does he know about? The rest of Emily's question was swallowed by a noise. Someone shifting on the bed, fabric rustling. I stepped back like I'd been burned. Maybe they were talking about something else, I told myself. Some other secret. A bill. A surprise party. Anything but what my gut already suspected. I didn't confront them then. I backed away, my head pounding harder, my stomach twisting. I grabbed some painkillers from the kitchen, left a note saying I was going to sleep in the spare room, and shut the door behind me. But the words stuck. He never knew. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, replaying years in my head like surveillance footage. Little things I'd ignored because I loved her, because I trusted her. The guy who always just happened to be at the same bar when she had girls' nights. The coworker she kept calling just a friend while hiding her phone screen. The way she used to go cold and distant whenever the topic of when exactly we started came up. It was like puzzle pieces I'd never realized were from the same box suddenly clicked together. A week later, the real trigger hit. I was cleaning out the attic, looking for some old tax documents. Dust everywhere, boxes stacked badly like a game of Jenga. I opened a mislabeled box that was supposed to be Christmas stuff. Instead, I found an old shoebox. Inside were photos. Not ours. Not family albums. These were prints, glossy, and aged at the edges from at least 2 decades ago. Jessica looked almost the same. Eyes full of trouble, that confident smirk, hair a little different. Younger, wilder. And next to her was a man I'd never seen before. Tall, broad shoulders, cocky grin. His arm was wrapped around her waist like she belonged to him. In one picture, they were at some bar, pressed too close together. In another, they were in a cheap motel room, bare shoulders wrapped in sheets. My stomach clenched. On the back of one photo, in Jessica's handwriting, was a date. 21 years ago, the year before Emily was born. Next to the date, a note. Best night of my life. Jico Noir J. J and J. Jessica and Jason. I don't know how long I sat there staring at that handwriting. Long enough for my legs to go numb and my hands to start shaking. When I finally got up, I took the box downstairs like I was handling explosives. That night, after Jessica fell asleep, I went online and ordered a DNA test kit. Not because I knew yet, but because for the first time in 20 years, I was finally willing to ask the question I'd been too scared to even form in my head. What if Emily isn't mine? And if she isn't, what else has Jessica lied about? I didn't know it then, but those 2 questions were about to blow my life apart. The DNA test arrived faster than I expected. 3 days, maybe 4. I don't even remember. Time didn't move normally anymore. It felt sticky, warped, like every second was soaked in dread. The package sat on my desk for half a day before I touched it. I kept telling myself I was paranoid, delusional even, that I was about to tear my family apart over old photographs and overheard whispers. But fear doesn't erase truth. It only delays it. That night, when Jessica was in the shower and Emily was out with her friends, I opened the box. My hands were shaking. I told myself it was just nerves, not the possibility that everything I'd ever believed about my family was a lie. I followed the instructions, swabbed my cheek, labeled everything, packed it up. As I sealed the envelope, something inside me snapped. Not loud, not dramatic, just a quiet, irreversible click. Once mailed, there was no going back. The next week was hell. Jessica acted normal, too normal. She hummed around the house, wore that smug smile she used when she thought she'd won something only she understood. She'd kiss my cheek, talk about weekend plans, forget to mention where she'd be for hours at a time. And every single gesture felt rehearsed. Emily, on the other hand, was distant. Not angry, just indifferent. Like I was furniture. Like she was already halfway out the door of a life she didn't realize wasn't built on her father's blood. Then came a moment. The results email. It was late afternoon. I was at my desk. My phone buzzed. A notification. Your DNA analysis is ready. My hands went ice cold. For a long second, I couldn't move. My finger hovered over the screen, trembling like it belonged to someone else. And then I opened it. 0.0%. Not low. Not unlikely. 0. My entire identity as a father evaporated in a single sentence. I closed the laptop quietly, like if I moved gently enough, reality might give me a moment to breathe. But Jessica stormed into the room like she could smell weakness. "What's wrong with you?" she snapped. Not concern, annoyance. Always annoyance. "You look like you saw a ghost." I stared at her. For the first time in 20 years, really stared at her. The woman I loved. The woman I built a life with. The woman who looked me in the eye and vowed I was her forever. Her smile wasn't warm. It was amused, predatory, like she already knew what the test would say and had been waiting for her performance cue. I know, I said. Jessica blinked. Know what? The truth. Silence. Thick. Heavy. Dangerous. What truth? She asked finally, voice tight, eyes narrowing. That Emily isn't mine. For a second, a fragment of a second, her mask cracked. Then she laughed. Not nervous laughter. Not regret. Mockery. Oh, for God's sake, she scoffed. That? You're still hung up on that ancient history. Ancient history. My world collapsed, and she dismissed it like outdated fashion. You lied to me, I said, my voice calm in a way that terrified even me. Jessica crossed her arms, eyes rolling. It was 20 years ago. We weren't married. I made a mistake. You got a daughter out of it. Why are you acting like a victim? I raised her. And Jessica snapped. What? You want a refund? You should be grateful. You got a family without having to do anything except show up. Jason wasn't ready. You were. Everyone benefited. Everyone but me. Everyone but the man who spent 2 decades loving someone who wasn't his daughter while sleeping next to a woman who treated him like a placeholder. My jaw clenched. You let me believe she was mine. Jessica shrugged. Shrugged. It made things easier. Easier. Not right. Not fair. Not human. Then she added the sentence that destroyed every last ember of who I used to be. If you couldn't handle it, you should have left sooner. Something in me died right there. Not with fire, with frost. A quiet freeze that started in my chest and spread outward, replacing love with clarity. I stood. Jessica raised an eyebrow. Where do you think you're going? Away from you, I said. Finally. She laughed again. You won't. You're too weak. That word. Weak. That's when I knew what had to happen. Not revenge. Not violence. Truth. The one thing she never imagined I would use. I walked out of the room without another word. Not because I was defeated, but because for the first time in 20 years, I was planning my escape. And this time, she wouldn't see it coming. By the time evening came, my decision was no longer a thought. It was a pulse, steady and undeniable. I wasn't staying another day in a house built on lies. But leaving wasn't enough. Jessica had spent years crafting a world where she was the hero, Emily was her loyal echo, and I was the background furniture. Leaving quietly would make me the villain in their story. No, I wanted the truth to speak for itself. Emily walked in around 9. She dropped her backpack by the door and kicked off her shoes without looking at me. Same habits as Jessica, careless, entitled, certain the world revolved around her feelings. Hey, I said. She grunted something that wasn't a greeting. Her eyes stayed glued to her phone. Notifications popped like firecrackers. Emily, I tried again. We need to talk. She sighed dramatically, as if my existence was an inconvenience. If this is about Mom, don't start. She already told me everything. Everything. Amazing how lies can be packaged as truth if the liar speaks first. She told your version, I said. Not the truth. Emily rolled her eyes. Dad, it was 20 years ago. You weren't even together. Why are you losing your mind over something ancient? Ancient. Again. Like betrayal expires. I inhaled slowly. Did she tell you that I'm not your biological father? Emily scoffed. Yeah. She said you're being dramatic. She said you knew she had a past, and you can't handle it. I almost laughed. Jessica's talent for inversion, turning her crimes into my flaws, was a masterpiece of manipulation. Emily, I didn't know anything. I found pictures. I found the man. I took a DNA test. I pointed at the envelope still on the table. This isn't insecurity. This is fact. Emily crossed her arms. You're blowing up our family over a mistake Mom made before I was even born. It wasn't a mistake, I snapped. It was a choice. And she kept choosing it every day. She lied to me, to you, to everyone. Emily's voice went cold. You're just mad she moved on. That someone better came before you. There it was, the dagger Jessica had planted. Better. A word meant to reduce me to nothing. You think she moved on? I asked. She didn't move on, Emily. She got caught. Emily stared at me with a look I'll never forget. Jessica's look, copied perfectly. Arrogance, entitlement, and a belief that guilt belongs to everyone but her. "You're weak," she said, the exact same tone Jessica used. Strong men don't cry over old affairs. My heart didn't break this time. It hardened. "You called me weak," I repeated softly, "for leaving her over this." Emily shrugged. "It's pathetic." Something inside me stopped trembling. Anger didn't roar anymore, it aligned. Sharpened. "You want to know what pathetic is?" I asked. "Pathetic is a man raising a child for 20 years who isn't his and being mocked for finding out." Emily blinked. She wasn't expecting that. "You don't get it," she muttered. "Mom told me he wasn't serious. He was just some guy she messed around with. It didn't mean anything." I leaned forward. "Look at me." Reluctantly, she met my eyes. "She messed around with that man," I said, each word deliberate, "and he's your biological father. That's what you're defending. Not a mistake. A life built on a lie." Emily looked away. "People make mistakes." "People do," I agreed. "But only monsters lie for decades and laugh when the truth comes out." Her throat tightened. I saw it. A crack. Not understanding, not yet. But impact. I slid the test results across the table toward her. "This isn't about the affair. This is about every day after. Every birthday. Every family dinner. Every time she smiled at me, knowing I was living a life she engineered." Emily stared at the paper like it was poisonous. I placed the second sheet, the address, on top of it. "That's his house," I said. "Jason Turner. Your real father." Emily froze. Then, exactly like her mother would, she reached for rage instead of remorse. "I don't care," she shouted. "You're still my dad. Well, you were. Until you ruined it." I laughed, a sound I didn't recognize. "I ruined nothing. I just stopped pretending." Her mouth opened, ready to throw another insult, but I lifted my hand. "You've got 30 minutes to pack your things." Her face twisted. "You can't do that." "I can," I said, "and I am." "You spent the last 24 hours defending her lies. Now you can live with them." Emily looked stunned, not because she cared, but because she never imagined consequences were real. "Where am I supposed to go?" she whispered. "To the truth," I answered. Silence wrapped the room. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I wasn't the broken one anymore. I was the man finally walking out of the cage his wife built around him and taking the damn door off its hinges as I left. Emily didn't move at first. She stood frozen in the middle of the living room like someone had unplugged her from reality. The words 30 minutes hung between us like smoke, visible, suffocating, undeniable. Her initial shock melted fast, too fast. I could practically watch the gears turning in her head, the same arrogant machinery her mother used to manipulate truth until it bent into something convenient. "You're abandoning me," she hissed. "No, ikurrakta komli. I'm setting you free." "To what?" "To some stranger," she snapped, voice trembling with the first sting of consequences she'd never believed existed. "He's not my dad. He's her biological father," I said. "That's your mother's design, not mine." Emily shook her head, stepping backward. "Mom was right. You can't handle anything. You're pathetic." There was again that word, the anthem of Jessica's worldview. She believed weakness was acknowledging pain, while she mistook cruelty for strength. "Call her," Emily demanded. "Right now. She'll sort this out." "She already sorted it," I said. "For 20 years. Emily let out a sharp, humorless laugh. "You don't get to rewrite history." "No, it'll be, your mother already did that. I'm just refusing to read her version anymore." She stormed down the hallway, slamming her bedroom door so hard the frame shook. Drawers opened, clothes flew, the sound of frantic packing echoed through the walls. Not careful, not thoughtful, panicked. Because deep down, she wasn't defending Jessica's choices. She was defending the comfort of never facing truth. While she packed, I walked into the kitchen and looked around the house, my house. Every wall, every chair, every picture frame had been part of a story I thought I was living. Now I realized I'd been an actor in someone else's script. The family portrait on the wall caught my eye. The one from Emily's high school graduation. Her smile so wide, Jessica clutching her shoulder proudly, me standing behind them like a pillar. A role, not a reality. For the first time ever, I saw the truth hiding in the picture. I was the prop. Emily emerged 20 minutes later, dragging a suitcase that was too heavy for her to lift, but too symbolic to leave behind. Mascara stained her cheeks. She'd been crying. Not because of me, not because she understood, but because consequences finally knocked on her door and didn't apologize. "You're really doing this?" she asked, voice small. "I didn't choose this," I said. "Your mother did when she lied about your father. You chose this when you mocked me for finally leaving her lies." Her chin quivered. "Mom will fix this." "Mom can explain it," I corrected. "She can't fix what she broke." Emily pulled out her phone and dialed without hesitation. Jessica answered instantly, her voice loud enough for me to hear across the room. "What did he do now?" There was no concern, only strategy. Emily choked out words between sobs, but Jessica cut her off. "Put him on." I didn't move. Jessica's voice slithered through the speaker, smooth, venomous. "You think this makes you strong?" she taunted. "All you've done is prove what I told her. You were always too emotional for me." There it was. The truth she never meant for me to hear. I wasn't her partner. I was her placeholder. I spoke slowly, so every syllable would land. "You lied to me for 20 years. Jessica scoffed. "And you believed it. That's not my fault." I didn't scream. I didn't argue. Monsters don't feel guilt. They feel opportunity. "Emily will be at your place tonight," I said. "Make room." Jessica tried to sound unfazed, but a crack formed in her voice. "You think pushing her away makes you look powerful?" "No, Iropiya. It makes me free." I hung up. Emily stared at me, stunned, not because she understood, but because she couldn't control the ending. "You'll regret this," she whispered. I shook my head. "I already regret the last 20 years. This is the first decision I don't regret." I helped her carry her suitcase to the door, not out of affection, but out of closure. The air outside was cold, sharp, honest. A new language my house had never spoken. Emily hesitated before stepping out. "Are you still my dad?" she asked, voice cracking. I looked her in the eyes, not angry, not broken, just awake. "Oh, as I said, until today." She stepped outside. The door closed. The lock clicked, not a prison shutting, but a sentence ending. For the first time in decades, the house finally belonged to the truth. I stood in the middle of the living room after Emily left, surrounded by the carcass of a family that had never actually existed. Silence didn't feel peaceful. It felt honest. It felt like the first moment in years where the house was allowed to breathe without the weight of Jessica's script crushing every corner. But truth never ends quietly. It demands witnesses. My phone rang again. Not Emily this time. Jessica. Her name slid across the screen like poison. I let it ring. It rang 4 more times. Then a text arrived. "You think you can humiliate me?" Answer the phone. That sentence, those 7 words, summed up 20 years of our marriage better than any vow ever had. Jessica never cared about truth, only about control. I picked up the phone on the 5th call, not because I wanted to hear her, but because I finally understood something. The only way to beat a narcissist is to stop playing the game. "Where is Emily?" she demanded before I could speak. "With you," I said calmly. "Since you're the only parent she thinks deserves loyalty." "You're ridiculous," Jessica snapped. "You traumatized her. She's hysterical. You had no right." "No," I corrected. "You had no right. You stole fatherhood from 2 men, Jason and me, and now you want applause for keeping the credits rolling." Jessica went silent. Then she laughed, a low, humorless sound. "You're obsessed with the past." "No," I said. "I'm done being trapped by it." "You're weak," she hissed. "Emily sees it. She knows strength when she sees it. Strength, her religion, her addiction, her measuring stick for every human relationship she ever touched." "You mistake strength for cruelty," I replied. "They're not the same." Jessica scoffed. "You always loved playing martyr. No wonder Emily's embarrassed by you." Her words didn't cut me anymore. They exposed her. "You know what the DNA test did?" I asked. "It made you pathetic." "No," I said softly. "It made you irrelevant." That was the first time in our entire marriage I ever heard Jessica lose her voice. Not because she felt guilt, but because she sensed something she had never encountered from me before. Indifference. "You're going to regret this," she finally whispered. "No," I answered. "My only regret is letting you turn my life into a lie." Jessica inhaled sharply, then tried one last tactic, her weapon of choice. "Pity. After everything I gave you, you didn't give me anything," I cut in. "You loaned me a fantasy and charged me in loyalty." Silence again. Beautiful, suffocating silence. Then came her true voice, the one she never used in public, the one that cut flesh when nobody was watching. "You were never enough for me." I smiled. For the first time in 20 years, that sentence didn't break me. It freed me. "I wasn't supposed to be enough," I said. "I was supposed to be blind." Jessica's breathing became ragged. Rage simmered. She was losing the frame, losing the narrative, losing her throne. "Emily will hate you forever," she spat. "No," I said. "She'll grow up. And when she finally asks the right questions, you'll be the only one with answers that rot." Jessica screamed something incoherent, but I ended the call before her voice contaminated the air any further. I placed the phone on the table. It didn't ring again. For a moment, I closed my eyes and exhaled. I wasn't happy. I wasn't healed. But I was awake, painfully awake. Then something unexpected happened. A knock at the door. I opened it slowly, half expecting Emily, half expecting Jessica, ready to escalate. But it wasn't either of them. It was a man, tall, broad shoulders, a familiar face from old photographs. Jason Turner, the biological father. His eyes locked onto mine. "Nos magnis. Noblo ating." Just guilt. "Are you David?" he asked quietly. My pulse slowed. The universe was done whispering. It was speaking now loudly. "Yes," I said. Jason took a breath that looked like it hurt. "We need to talk." In that moment, I realized Jessica's lies were not finished collapsing. They were finally beginning to explode, piece by piece, person by person, until there would be nothing left of her kingdom, except ashes she couldn't control. Jason didn't step inside until I moved aside, not an inch more than necessary, as if he was afraid the threshold itself might accuse him. His eyes swept the room, not with arrogance, but with a discomfort that told me everything. He wasn't here to take a victory lap. He was here because the truth finally found him too. We sat across from each other at the dining table, the same table where Jessica once pretended we were a perfect family, where birthdays were celebrated, where lies were served alongside dessert. Now, it felt like an interrogation room. Jason cleared his throat, fingers interlocked so tightly they looked fused together. "I didn't know," he began. I almost laughed. It wasn't humor. It was exhaustion, the kind that strips all emotion until sarcasm becomes survival. "That's what everyone says," I replied. "Nobody knew. Nobody knew for 20 years. And yet somehow everyone benefited from my ignorance." Jason winced. "I'm not here to defend her. I'm here because Emily showed up at my place. Crying, screaming. She thought I kidnapped her." I leaned back. "You did. 20 years ago. You just didn't show up to raise her afterward." His eyes flinched, as if my words were fists. "I didn't know she existed," he repeated. "Jessica told me she was on birth control. She told me it was casual. We ended things before she got pregnant." The puzzle pieces clicked, not gently, not kindly, but like a guillotine. Jessica had planned it. She didn't accidentally give birth to another man's child. She manufactured her future. Jason pulled out something from his jacket, an old folded photo. The same bar, same smirk on Jessica's face, same cocky grin on his. But this time there was writing on the back. Not hers. His. It said, "Don't disappear again. G." Jason tapped it lightly. "She sent this to me, the day she ended things. No explanation. No closure. Just vanish." For the first time that night, I felt something other than rage. Clarity. Jessica didn't choose me because she loved me. She chose me because I was useful, the stable one, the predictable one, the one who would accept responsibility she didn't want to face. "You realize she built her entire life by erasing you," I said. Jason nodded. "She erased both of us." I studied him carefully. He wasn't the monster I expected. His eyes were tired, older than his face, etched with a guilt he didn't deserve, but still carried. "Why are you here?" I asked. Jason hesitated. Then, because Emily asked if I wanted her. My pulse stilled, and I forced out. He looked at me with a weight that made time bend. "I don't know how to want a child I never met," he admitted, "but I want to try." My chest tightened. I didn't know if it was rage or grief or something uglier, something that sounded like envy. I had raised Emily. I bandaged scraped knees, taught her to ride a bike, stayed up through nightmares, celebrated her wins, held her through heartbreaks. Now this man, this stranger, got handed a chance I earned the hard way. But then I understood something brutal. He wasn't my enemy. Jessica was. She had stolen fatherhood twice. Once by giving him a child he never knew, and again by giving me a child who was never mine. "Emily's angry," Jason continued. "Confused. She hates you right now." "I know," I said softly. "She thinks truth is betrayal." "She'll figure it out," Jason replied. "Kids believe the parent who lies first." That sentence didn't calm me. It carved me open. "She's not a kid anymore," I said. "She's a replica." Jason didn't argue. He understood. The silence between us wasn't hostile. It was shared grief, mutual robbery, the echoes of two lives rewritten by the same woman. Then he asked a question I never expected. "Do you want me involved, or do you want me gone?" I stared at him. Not at the man Jessica once chose over me, but at the man whose life Jessica also destroyed in her quest to control every narrative. "No one should pay for her lies twice," I said finally. "Stay. If Emily has any chance at building something real, she needs at least one truth in her life." Jason exhaled, the kind of breath someone takes when they've been underwater too long. "Then we do this together," he said. "Not friends, not rivals, just two men bleeding from the same wound." He stood, walked to the door, and stopped. "She told me once," he said without turning around, "that she liked men she could sculpt." He paused. "You're the only thing she couldn't shape." He left without another word. When the door clicked shut, the house felt heavier. But for the first time, not mine alone, Jessica's kingdom was falling, brick by life-filled brick. And I had one part left to play, not as her husband, not as Emily's father, but as the man who finally refused to kneel at the altar of her deception. The morning after Jason left, the house felt like a battlefield after the smoke clears. Not peaceful, just quiet, because every scream had already been spent. My marriage wasn't ending anymore. It was a corpse. The problem with corpses is simple. Someone still has to bury them. I stood in the living room, staring at the walls that had once been covered with family photos. They were gone now, every one of them. I had removed them that night, frame by frame, not in anger, but with the precision of someone reclaiming oxygen. The last photo left was Emily's baby picture. The one taken in the hospital, the one I use to swear was the happiest moment of my life. Now it felt like evidence. I took it down. My fingers trembled, not with heartbreak, but with something colder, something final. My phone buzzed. Jessica. Again. This time, instead of words, she sent a photo. It was her, smiling, wearing the same expression she used after every victory, real or imagined. The caption underneath read, "You'll crawl back. You always do." It was almost poetic in the way a venomous thing can be poetic, admiring its own reflection right before someone breaks the mirror. I typed only 2 words back. "Watch me." Then I blocked her number. The silence afterward wasn't empty. It was mine. By noon, I had something I never imagined I'd hold. Divorce papers. Not because I was running away, but because I was finally done being held hostage by someone else's arrogance. I didn't throw the papers at Jessica. I didn't scream. I didn't show up at her door for some dramatic showdown. That's what she expected. Chaos, shouting, a scene she could twist later. Instead, I sent them through a courier. Facts don't argue. They arrive. They imprint. They change things. Around 3 in the afternoon, Emily returned. Not with apology, not with clarity, with incredulity. She stormed into the house as if she still lived there, as if truth could be reversed by volume alone. "You had no right," she yelled. "Mom is furious. You're tearing this family apart." That family never existed. I replied. It was a performance. I was the understudy who didn't know he was on stage. Emily shook her head. You're insane. No, I said. I'm free. She shoved something into my chest. A folded letter. She said you should read it. I opened it. Jessica's handwriting. Your weakness made this easy. Don't pretend you were ever a player. You were the set piece. I smiled, not because it didn't hurt, but because it no longer mattered. A final insult, Emily murmured. Why are you smiling? Because, I said, folding the letter neatly. She just admitted something she never intended to. What? That she spent 20 years terrified I might stop being her puppet. Truth isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a whisper that unravels chains. Emily glared at me, frustrated not by what I'd done, but by what she couldn't control. You'll regret losing us, she said. No, Yen Surath. I regret wasting myself on people who preferred lies over love. Her anger cracked. Beneath it, something human flickered. Fear, not of losing me, of losing certainty. She turned and walked out. No slamming door. No teatrix. Just gone. For once, silence didn't hurt. Days passed. Papers filed. Locks changed. Furniture moved. Not renovations, exorcisms. Then, one evening, the doorbell rang. I opened it expecting another ghost from the past. But it wasn't Jessica, and it wasn't Emily. It was Jason. He stood with something in his hands, a small, framed photo. Emily, smiling, younger, innocent. She left this, Jason said. Said, she doesn't know where she belongs yet. I took the frame. Not painfully, gently. She'll need time, I whispered. She will, he agreed. Kids built on lies don't know how to walk on truth without falling first. He wasn't wrong. We shook hands, not as allies, not as rivals, but as survivors of the same war. Jason walked away. I closed the door. People imagine closure is loud. A speech, a slammed door, a confession. It isn't. Closure is when silence finally tells the truth you were too afraid to hear. You didn't lose them. You finally stopped losing yourself. I placed Emily's photo on the shelf, not as a memory of betrayal, but as a reminder that love isn't proven by blood. It's proven by truth. And for the first time in 20 years, the truth was mine. End.